And when you're thinking of building a business, right? Because I like working with people who are trying to build a legit business. It's not something where, and I mean, that's what I'm doing, right? Like I've been selling on Amazon since 2017. It's not like something where I'm trying to get in and make a quick buck and get out. So if you have that long-term perspective, another thing you need to think about, and if you've been selling for any amount of time, you know this, all products have a life cycle.
E-commerce is the greatest business opportunity of our generation. What's up, people? Today's episode is one that you might want to listen to twice. While I was in ASD with Jonah and Corey, we recorded a podcast going over the best strategies for wholesale on Amazon in 2024. What used to work and doesn't work anymore, what used to work and still works, and how you should be doubling down and scaling or starting your wholesale business. So if you're new to Amazon or if you've been in the game for a little bit, this is a conversation that you will get a ton of value out of, and I am very excited for you to listen to. Enjoy.
All right, guys, so let's talk about what has been working for wholesale sellers in 2024, right? Because obviously the three of us specifically, we spend a lot of time helping newer sellers, also help just really working with a lot of other experienced sellers in the community. And I feel like there are certain things that worked well in the past that don't work anymore in 2024. I've got a couple of specific things that come to mind that kind of fall into that category. And there are some other things that work in 2024 that have worked all along. So let's maybe start talking about the stuff that used to work that no longer works, right? And the first thing, at least for me, that comes to mind is buying from closeout suppliers or liquidators, right? Seems to be a very popular way to get into wholesale because there's a lot of liquidation companies out there. There's a lot of closeout companies out there. And a lot of them, quite frankly, are just predatory. They prey on Amazon sellers. They can tell what a new Amazon seller looks like, and they try to sell them product that, quite honestly, has a very poor supply chain, right? So that's something that 4 or 5 years ago, you could get away with that. You can buy products at closeout, at liquidation. You don't have to have the best supply chain, and you can make a ton of money. But in 2024, that's not going to cut it, because Amazon's really cracking down on supply chain. So what are some other things that you guys have noticed maybe worked in the past, isn't really working so well anymore?
I would just say in the past, quantity used to work. Like you could hit up 100 suppliers, or you're searching through a price sheet with thousands of items, and you're gonna find something profitable and it's gonna sell well. But nowadays, because exactly what you're saying, it comes down to quality.
Right.
Like you need quality. So it's not even about if somebody's profitable or not. It's more like, are they legit?
Right.
Is the supply chain legit? So back in the day, that wasn't a huge issue. You could go to trade shows like ASD, have a huge set of cards that you go look through, open accounts, and it's all good. Now it's about quality and honestly just connections and networking. So that's always worked in the past, but in 2024, it's even more important because networking with other suppliers or other sellers who know authorized suppliers is a perfect way for you to get in the door, you know?
What do you think, Kaj?
Yeah, but the thing that came to mind for me is exactly what you said. It's just like you used to be able to buy pretty much any product from anybody, and as long as it was profitable, you're good. And now it's not even a question of whether or not the product's authentic, it's whether or not the supplier can prove the supply chain. And so it's like, even if the liquidator, you know, if you trust them, you know, they seem legit, the product's fine, but it's like if something happens, a customer complaint, a brand IP complaint, and Amazon doesn't recognize your invoice, you're kind of screwed.
And for the listeners, I want to clarify kind of what we mean by that, right? Because you're probably listening, you might be listening to this podcast and thinking to yourself, well, wait, if the product's authentic, if it's a legitimate product, if it's not counterfeit, right? Why would Amazon care? All they want you to do is buy and sell. So like we said previously, a few years ago, that would be the case, right? As long as it's a legitimate product, Amazon doesn't really care. But they have been because think about it, the FTC is probing Amazon. Lots of different government agencies are cracking down on Amazon, everything from review fraud to counterfeiting to just generally making sure the products on their marketplaces are legitimate and are safe. So the burden in 2024 is more on the seller, where you are guilty until proven innocent unless you can fully prove that the products that you're buying are legit and were sourced directly from the manufacturer, whether that was from you or from the person that you bought it from, right? So I know, guys, the advice that I've been giving, and I think you guys have been giving similar advice, especially to newer sellers, is when you're vetting a supplier, it really comes down to two questions. One, is this supplier, is it the brand themselves, right? Am I buying directly from the manufacturer? If the answer is yes, well, great. You have virtually nothing to worry about, right? Because you're getting it straight from the source. If the answer is no, then question number 2 becomes, is this person buying directly from the manufacturer? If that answer is no, then you are taking a huge risk if you choose to buy from them. Because a lot of time, we see this all the time. It's like some guy is buying it from some guy who's buying it from another guy who's buying it from the brand. And I'm sorry, but Amazon's not going to like that, right? They're going to crack down on that pretty hard. So again, just to kind of reiterate for the listeners here, what we mean, but like why it's not just enough to sell like a legit product, right?
And we've seen it firsthand too. Like you just went through a Section 3. I got my account deactivated last year, and that was eye-opening. Where it's like, wow, I bought probably $5,000 worth of product from a guy, nothing.
Jeopardize the whole business.
Our account's doing $1 million a month, and we still can't get reinstated with Amazon, because they don't care. If the product is not legit or you can't prove it's legit, you're going to get screwed either way.
Right. And so when it comes to just vetting suppliers, because I know, at least inside the Wholesale Network, the most common question that I get by far is, hey, can you look at this supplier and tell me if you think they're legit or not, right? And like, I can speak for myself. I know this applies to you guys as well. Like, we've saved people from making really, like, account business-ending mistakes, right? By simply saying, do not buy from this person. But on the other hand, we've also helped people double down on good suppliers where, like, for example, they send us a supplier and I'm like, they're very legit. Like, I don't know how you landed that, but keep doing what you're doing. So when it comes to just like vetting suppliers, whether it's brands, whether it's distributors, what does that process look like for you guys? Like, what is the checklist you go through to vet?
Yeah. And one thing on what you were saying before that I mentioned, it's like, as that transition has happened in Amazon, right, it does become a little bit more difficult to find something that's profitable and has a legit supply chain when you first start versus when you could just buy from liquidators.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that's a good thing, right? Because it's going to weed out the people who aren't as serious about it, and it's going to create a bigger barrier of entry for the people who are willing to put in the work to actually grow a legit business. And then when it comes to vetting suppliers, I mean, for me, it's like, just go to the brand first. Yep. That's always the easiest way, because if you can buy direct from the brand, perfect. If you can't buy direct from the brand, ask them for their distributors, and if they have referred you to a distributor, then you know it's legit because the brand is selling directly to them. Or if you end up reaching out to a distributor first and you're not sure, obviously you can ask one of us, and if we know the supplier or we can tell that they're legit, we can tell you that. But then the next step, or even before you reach out to us, is just call the brand that you're trying to buy from that distributor and ask the brand if that distributor is authorized.
That's like the most underrated method by far, is like, call the brand and ask them who their distributors are. And like, obviously there are going to be plenty of brands, because they don't want their stuff to end up on Amazon. They know why you're asking who their distributors are. They're going to tell you, like, sorry, I'm not going to tell you who my distributors are, right? You're going to have to go figure it out. Yeah. So brands like that, I mean, whatever. If they don't want your money, then that's fine. But there are plenty of brands out there that even if that brand will not sell directly to you, they will tell you who their distributors are, because they have distributors that sell to businesses like yours. Yep. So that's the biggest cheat code by far, is if you call up 100 brands and don't even ask them for a wholesale account, literally just ask them who their distributors are. You have that conversation with 100 brands, you end with 200 to 500 legitimate authorized distributor leads from those 100 conversations, like fact. So the easiest way to find like legit distributors by far is just to ask the brands.
Yep. And just think about it as, if you're the brand, like, would you want to sell to hundreds of accounts, or would you rather have 5 legit distributors who I sell to, and then they sell to everyone else? Like, when you're contacting a brand, you have to really think about, like, is my purchase order going to make a difference to them? And if not, you probably shouldn't even hit them up in general. You should go to a distributor instead. But like with vetting these suppliers, when it's brands and distributors, it comes down to transparency, which is very new in this space too. You know, like we're all kind of like hiding out when you first get started, or like Amazon is this hot word that brands hate, you know, but after a while, the conversation comes up at some point. It's like, okay, so I can sell for 6 months, and then maybe they ask and kick me off, or I could bring it up in our first couple conversations. How's e-commerce? You know, what's the online policy? And from that, like, it's going to be harder, higher barrier, but the partners you land are the ones where you're having that recurring revenue every month for years on end.
And you made a great point, right? Like, the Amazon conversation is going to come up sooner or later. So if you're talking to a supplier and it's your first interaction with them and they don't mention anything about Amazon, right? You think to yourself, especially if you're a newest seller, you're like, oh, I got away with this one, right? Like they didn't ask, so they're never gonna find out. It's like, dude, if you're buying big quantities, they know you're selling it on Amazon. They either, one, don't care, or two, the sales rep that you're dealing with just wants to make a commission and he's gonna deal with you later, right?
Yeah.
Whether that means his manager tells him to cut you off, or whether that means that they take a different direction. But kind of like you,
if you're violating MAP.
yeah, oh, that's the quickest way to get shut down. But Jonah, I mean, like you said, right, it's so beneficial to have the Amazon conversation early on in the relationship. Like you said, right, leading with the question of, well, hey, what are you guys doing when it comes to e-commerce? How does your Amazon channel look? Do you have partners for that channel? Being very upfront about it. And I like to do the same thing. If anything, if the vendor doesn't ask me about Amazon in our initial conversation, I like to bring it up myself and just say, well, hey, yeah, by the way, we are planning to sell this on Amazon. We are a large e-commerce retail and distribution business, just being perfectly transparent about our intentions here. And very infrequently are they going to be like, whoa, wait, hold on. You're going to sell this on Amazon? Wait a second. It's like, okay, cool. Like I assumed you were, right? But you're a serious buyer. We had a good conversation, so it's fine. We'll let you be an authorized dealer, right? But I like to get out in front of it because I find that tends to open more doors than it closes. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Like once you have a partner too, and they're on board 100%, and you actually are providing value and it's going well, like these brands network amongst themselves.
Right.
Like if you go brand direct and you have a partner, you're gonna find a referral. They're gonna tell their buddy. Like I've gotten a number of referrals just from the first brand I worked with, and she told me no Amazon for like 18 months. We'd sell like a little bit here and there on Walmart, like it was really whatever. And then we got a chance, did well, and then now like she'll talk about us with other people. And I feel like as a seller, that's what your end goal should be, to have like legit partners. You can give them updates on how sales are going, because that's what no resellers are doing. So brands, that's why they hate Amazon too. It's like, we don't know what's going on the platform.
Right.
Somebody else created our listings, they're making sales, like they don't know the volume or anything like that. So if you give little insights, it's a huge value add. Yeah. Like sometimes I'm talking with brands and I'll pull up a Keep It chart and they're like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah, they're like it's like they discovered fire.
Yeah,
like, oh my God.
You have the internal to Amazon? It's like, dude, this is $20 a month.
Yeah, they used to be free.
Somebody in your organization should be signed up.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. That's so funny. Well, and go ahead. Do you have a point?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like when you're thinking of building a business, right? Because I like working with people who are trying to build a legit business. It's not something where, and I mean that's what I'm doing, right? Like I've been selling on Amazon since 2017. It's not like something where I'm trying to get in and make a quick buck and get out. So if you have that long-term perspective, another thing you need to think about, and if you've been selling for any amount of time, you know this. All products have a life cycle, right? Like a retail arbitrage product, you might be able to buy it once. An online arbitrage product, sometimes it'll vary. Might be once, might be a quarter, a year. Same thing with wholesale arbitrage products. Like if you're just buying from a distributor, and other people have access to that product, eventually it's not going to be profitable anymore, and that's just the name of the game, right? But when you're going brand direct, like no brand is going to last forever. But if you're able to lock down an exclusive with that brand, like the life cycle of that product can be multiple years, and it just stacks a lot better. It's going to be a lot more effort up front to build that relationship, gain that trust to where you can go exclusive or semi-exclusive. But if the product is legitimate and it's a good brand, like you're going to be able to, again, you're just going to be able to sell that for a much longer period of time.
And it's like that brand direct model of, call it the partnership approach, whatever you want to call it. It's about as close to a win-win as you can get in our space between all the parties involved, right? Because at least how we operate with brands, I think both you guys operate the same way. Our pitch is, hey, we're not going to charge you a dime. In fact, we're going to pay you because we're going to buy your inventory. We're going to invest our marketing dollars into advertising your product on Amazon. And guess what? The more that we sell of your product, the more that we help your brand grow on Amazon, the more money we make, because we make our money on the sale of each product. And guess what? When we make more money, you make more money, because now we're buying more from you on a monthly and a every 2 month basis, whatever that looks like. So it's just everybody's incentives are aligned in every possible way. And the beauty of some of these brands that you're partnering with, right? Sure, you're going to have churn, right? You have brands that they go out of business or they choose a different partner, something happens. But in general, it only takes, as you guys know, 1 to 3 really solid brands to have a 7-figure or an 8-figure business. And people might be listening to this thinking like, well, you can't build a $10 million a year Amazon business off 3 brands. Yeah, you can. I literally know. There's literally, people have like $50 million brands. Like it'd be crazy to think that's not possible. So I think the takeaway I want people to get here is when it comes to brand direct, way more work up front. And also just quite frankly, a more advanced Amazon skill set is required. Because if you're going to be pitching a brand that's already doing, let's say, $20K a month, $50K a month, $100K a month, if you're going to pitch them on how you're going to get them from 30 to 60 or 50 to 100, you've got to know what you're doing. So you've got to be able to deliver the goods. But when you do deliver the goods, Jonah, like you said, they love you for it. It's a very sticky relationship. It ends up being multiple years, right? Not just multiple months or multiple purchase orders. And you get to grow with that brand. As their sales improve, your sales improve. As they launch new products, you're going to have the ability to launch those products. Like really everybody wins, and it's the safest way to do Amazon because you're buying directly from the brand. So I love the fact that both you guys are headed that direction because in 2024, it really is the way to go.
Yeah, and those brand relationships can still come from distributors too.
Totally.
Like you can be buying through a distributor and then eventually reach out directly to that brand. And sometimes like you still want to work with the distributor because they might have more buying power. They might just be able to get a way better rate than you. So even though they're buying and then you're buying from them, you might still be able to get it cheaper from the distributor than if you were buying direct. But you can say, hey, I'm buying from this distributor who's authorized. Can you give me access to be able to help update your listings or, do whatever on the back end for them as well?
Dude, perfect example of that is one of the, 3 or 4 group buys that we've done inside the Wholesale Network Mastermind where, and you guys know, because I think you were part of the one in particular, and this is more so for the listeners for context. So there's a distributor that our mastermind group buys from, and they bring us deals first. They give us better pricing than they give the rest of their customers because we've spent like $1 million with them in the last 2 or 3 months. But the beauty of this specific product that I'm talking about is distributor comes to us, they say, hey, we got a product, it's in the home and kitchen space, great brand. We buy directly from the brand, and the brand is looking to get their Amazon channel under control. So how about this? How about we choose, 5 or 6 people from your mastermind, we sell exclusively to you guys, and if you need that LOA, that letter of authorization, you can have it. We have it from the brand ready to go. And we even had one of our guys go through a Section 3 on that specific brand. And what's crazy, this is how plugged in we are with this distributor, he's on the video verification call with the Amazon employee. The Amazon employee is grilling him saying, provide the LOA right now. I'm not letting you get off this call without giving me an LOA. He literally has to mute the Amazon rep on the video call, calls our distributor, gets the LOA sent to him within 60 seconds, shows it to the Amazon guy, and then beats the Section 3. Yeah. But that doesn't happen if you're not either buying from the brand or have a very close relationship with the brand, right? Yeah. If it wasn't for the relationship that we have with that specific supplier within the mastermind, I hate to say it, but his account probably would not be active.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things you always hear is relationships, especially in the wholesale space. And one of the most common questions we get asked is, do I go to brands, do I go to distributors? Like you said, it's literally both because of the relationship. So
right.
I've been able to build business with my distributors based on the relationship. And I'll, buy stuff they have, but also say, can you contact these brands? If you open an account with them, I'll give you a $50,000 purchase order. If you're telling a distributor that, sure, they would love to go open the brand. And from the brand's perspective, they know they're selling to the authorized distributor. I know it's legit supply chain. And then the step up from that is okay, now how can we work on a more exclusive basis, right? So you have great brands, great stuff selling, but if there's 10 other sellers and 3 of them go down a penny, you go from making sales to making nothing. So it's just one of those things where you have to build the relationship first, and then from there, everything compounds afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. When you had a great point too, where you're talking about, you're talking to your distributor, it's hey, Mr. Distributor, if you go lock down that brand that I really want to sell, I'll put a $50K PO in your hand the second you close that deal. So now it's so much easier for that distributor to go to that brand and say, hey, we want to start selling you guys. I've got a customer lined up. He's ready to spend $50K today. These are the products he wants. Let's make this happen. And because the distributor is approaching the brand as opposed to you as retailer, Amazon seller, whatever you want to call yourself, that distributor has so much more clout than you. Even if you're selling 10, 30, 50 million a year on Amazon, distributors generally get taken way more seriously because it's a more old school business model. They've got lots of different customers, and they're quite honestly a more legit, bigger company than most of us are operating on Amazon. So again, talking about like how do we create win-wins for everybody involved, that is a win for everybody. You as the Amazon seller get access to a brand that you otherwise couldn't access. Distributor gets to now distribute a brand that they were not previously distributing, and the brand gets a PO in hand on repeat from a legit distributor that they weren't working with prior, right? So lots of win-win-wins to be created with every party involved. Now, Jonah, something that you've been doing, I've heard, I think Noor in the Wholesale Network, we've had like a couple of people within the Wholesale Network that I think have tried, and Justin, I think, or maybe it was Dakota, have tried this with local retail store owners and are crushing it. In fact, I think it was Dakota, 3 days ago, he's like, hey, had to get a couple of POs in before we head to ASD, right? And it was 5 to 10K POs that he placed through a local retail store in his town, and that retail store is buying from the brand. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was his approach. He literally just found a retail store in his town. He said, hey, you guys carry XYZ brand. I tried to contact that brand, but they didn't want to sell to me because I'm just an Amazon seller, quote unquote. So how about this? If you guys have a wholesale account with them, I'll just buy from you guys and you can just mark it up 1 or 2%, right? So it's free money for the retail store owner because all they've got to do is tack Dakota's orders onto their existing orders, and then he just goes to the store and picks it up, preps it, and sends it right into FBA. I mean, are you guys doing something similar?
Yeah, we're
right?
doing something similar, like partnering with retail stores, and it goes back to relationship, right? So it's one of those things where, for us, I realized early on, like with the distributors I was working with, they would only sell to online sellers if they had a brick and mortar location, right? And I actually went through the process. I was like, dude, I need to start a brick and mortar.
Right.
I'm going to launch my
I feel
own
like everybody
retail
Amazon
store.
seller at one point or another thinks they're going to start a brick and mortar
a couple
store.
$1,000 a month, completely worth it, you know?
Right.
And I looked into that deeply, and instead I was like, I'm going to partner with a retail store. And so I preach local retail first, just because you can make that connection. You can walk in the store, you know?
Yep.
I've done it multiple ways. So yeah, you could uptick a couple percentages and just clean cut, give them a little bonus on whatever. You could take a commission on what sells and even just split profits. So like with my one retail store right now that I'm mainly working with, we split it 50-50, and I wanted them to be 100% on board. So I was like, I'm going to buy your product up front, and I'm going to place every single PO for you guys. So now I'm actually putting my own card down for inventory too, because some guys are still going to be like cautious, like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to. Order's big. The
relationship hasn't been
the relationship's not there. It might be a bigger order than they're used to, but if I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the one placing inventory for you guys, it's worked so far up to this point. And it's different scale, right? Like I have some guys, one of my main guys, it's like $25,000 a month, which is nothing, but the margins are great because the retail store has a great price from their distributor, somebody I would have never got access to, you know, and I actually landed like a brand direct from it, and that's just the whole exact thing. So I bring up Amazon to them. The retail stores know that I'm selling on Amazon. And then it's like, okay, what's that brand like? Oh, it's a small team of 3, you know, they do. That's like, okay.
It's beautiful. That's what I love to see.
Or, oh, they're a dinosaur. They're old school, whatever. Okay, let me get in there.
Right.
Just introduce me, get me on a call. I'm going to buy more from you guys. You're going to buy more from them.
Right.
Win-win-win for everybody.
That's actually how one of our, and this has been about a year in the making, one of our brand direct opportunities that we've been working on for a while with a very large established brand of ceiling fans. Now, this is an opportunity that came about from one of the retail stores. I mean, same exact model, right? It's actually a guy, he was in a local networking group that I'm a part of. Come to find out, his family has owned a lighting showroom in my town that's been around since like the 40s. And they've got very old, very established relationships with some of these like top tier manufacturers in the lighting space. And so we did exactly that. We said, well, hey, do you guys have pricing on XYZ brand? Yeah, we'll send it over. It was great pricing. We placed a 50K PO with them as like a test order. They drop shipped it from the brand straight to our 3PL, and 3PL sent it straight to Amazon. Now the downside here is that the brand right away reached out and was like, well, hey, hold on, who are you guys, right? Where did you get the product? And we were very upfront. We're like, hey, we got it through XYZ Lighting out of Greensboro, North Carolina, right? We're a partner with them. You can talk to them. You guys know the owner. And they were like, okay, well, that's fine, but you just can't buy anymore, right? We've got our authorized Amazon sellers. We can't have anybody else. So that's when we leverage the relationship that the store has with the brand to say like, all right, well, you guys have known this brand for decades. Get us a meeting with their, whoever runs their e-commerce side. And so we had a meeting with him. We put the idea in his head of having us come on as a new authorized seller, and we're just letting timing do its thing, right? Because as you guys know, 90% of this battle comes down to timing. So we have a legit opportunity to be an authorized seller of that brand, not just do some one-off deals. And it all came about from that partnership with that retail store.
Yeah, I'd say two things to that. So one is how you can operate in this is you can also like create the storefront for them. So let's say your retail store's on board. Like this is how you could create a new seller account for them, create a new bank account, and literally manage everything if they're on board. Like with my retail store, it's a completely separate seller account, completely separate bank account, and they don't see or do anything. I operate the whole thing. And it got to the point where I can contact a brand or a distributor and say I'm reaching out on behalf of this company.
And they're perfectly fine with that?
Of course, yeah,
Nice.
they're totally fine. Second point, I forgot. So.
Well, the first one was good.
So one thing, I'm in the process of doing this now with my brick and mortar partner, is kind of building out their own website. Because most of their stuff, they do some service stuff as well, so it's like a lot of foot traffic, but they don't sell physical products on their own website.
Yeah.
So we're going to build that out and then manage that for them as well.
Nice.
So it's like just
huge value add.
A huge value add, and just building another sales channel.
Yeah. It came back to me though. So what you mentioned was timing, and that's one of the things. Like it's so right, because I've had brands that crushed it for us, and I never brought up Amazon. This is back in like 2019, 2020. And then you end up getting kicked off because they go exclusive with some other guy. It's like, dude, I should have had the conversation. I should have brought it up, Yeah. So if you don't, somebody else is going to bring that conversation up.
Still, one of my favorite stories about timing, you guys might remember this, one of the guys in the mastermind, there's a brand that he went exclusive with that he had been following up with for a while. And the reason they had denied him, they didn't have any other Amazon sellers, and they ended up going exclusive with him because it was during the Inform Act. And no one at the company wanted to fill out their information.
No way, wait.
So they were literally just going to stop Amazon entirely.
Oh my God.
And he happened to reach out to them when that was happening. He's like, oh dude, we can just use my account. I filled it out. They're like, okay, cool. So they like shut down their account.
That's crazy.
So it's like this is the important thing about follow-up, again, because of timing. It's like you might reach out once and the timing's totally wrong. But you follow up once a month, once a quarter. It might take 6 months, a year,
For sure.
18 months, whatever it is. But then when the timing's right, you'll be top of mind. And when they run into an issue or they need a pivot, you'll be their guy.
Dude, that is so true. Yeah, when it comes to follow-up, it really is about timing. Like, it's a game of timing, right? Because there are wholesale accounts that all of us have landed where it's taken us months or weeks or even years of follow-up to land. And chances are we got those accounts because we followed up for so long. However, if we hadn't been in the follow-up process, if we had just cold called them on that day that we actually got the account for the first time, I guarantee you our chances of getting that account, like maybe we wouldn't have landed it that day, but our chances of landing it on day one would have been like 90% higher, just because the timing at that specific moment in time, they're like, all right, we're ready to add a new Amazon seller. They just went with us because we had been badgering them about it for the last year, 6 months, or however long. So that's a huge tip, guys. For those of you listening, like, there's just so much BS out there about like, oh, well, brands, they don't want to work with me because I sell on Amazon, and they probably don't. But there are brands out there that are looking for good, legitimate, professional Amazon sellers to work with. And some of those brands made that decision today that, hey, we need another Amazon seller. So if you just happen to call them today of all days, you could be brand new. You could have no idea what you're talking about, but that deal could just fall into your lap just because you made that call or just because you made that follow-up call. So really, so much of this business comes down to timing. Like, so much of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it comes to, so we were talking about things earlier, like what is working for sellers in 2024, what's not working for sellers in 2024. One of the things that I guess I really wanted to touch on that is working for sellers is getting access to capital and then being able to manage that capital effectively. I think a lot of people come into this business with, they either don't have enough capital or they just deploy it foolishly, right? They load up on software that ends up weighing them down. They end up hiring a team of VAs to do something that they themselves don't even know how to do. When in reality, especially if you're starting out, you got to keep it lean, right? Keep a SellerAmp, Smart Scout, Box'em, all you need from day one. From there, it's just simply buying good inventory and keeping it in stock, right? Simple as that.
Yep.
And honestly, like,
sponsor. Sponsor break by Warner.
quick break for our sponsor.
I approve this method.
No, but like what you just said too, it's like some sellers, okay, you have a $5,000 budget. Like you shouldn't just go out and try to spend $5,000 with the first supplier you talk to. Like all of us here,
as slow as possible.
yeah, all of us here didn't even start with wholesale either.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it is good to start with other models to like learn the basics and low risk compared to going out and spending $20K on a PO and then now you're burned. You know?
Yeah.
You slowly scale
Yeah.
into it. Get to a point where you understand the platform. Once you actually can provide value, or like, and I think a lot of sellers overthink it too. Like if you're a decent brained human being and you know
There aren't many
how,
of those,
yeah, there's not a
unfortunately.
lot, but with Amazon sellers, I do think it's like a video game, bro. Like we all understand, like you can get better at this.
Yeah.
You can learn the skills, like next level. So if you keep doing that and improving, like what you mentioned earlier, it's more about your skill set and building out your skill set rather than like what products.
And
do
it's
I
not
have?
rocket science.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated, you know? It's like, it's very simple. And even when it comes to like value added stuff, like improving the listing or running advertising, it's one of those things where if you haven't done it and it's an unknown, it's super intimidating.
Yeah.
But once you've done it a couple times, it's like, it's not really that.
Well, you see a lot of sellers don't even use Seller Central, like ever.
Right.
You know,
They don't even know how it
They don't
works.
know how to go to their inventory and like edit a listing. None of that stuff. So if I always say you should go into Seller Central, like dig around in there. They have so many resources and all that. Like you could probably save a lot of money on courses that people are selling and just go read through all.
There's like a Seller Central University,
Yeah.
I think.
Go
They have
read
like an
through
internal
Seller
knowledge
University.
base.
Amazon has their own free course.
Yeah.
Who would have thought, right?
It
Seriously.
literally tells you what to do and what not to do.
You know.
And a cool, like another thing that we're talking about, kind of like the basics, foundation, and just like general knowledge to scale. One thing I love about Amazon, and this really applies to whether you're doing arbitrage or wholesale, but it's like, it's the 80-20 rule at its finest, right? 80-20 is applied to every single aspect of this business. 20% of your suppliers are going to account for 80% of your products. 20% of your products are going to account for 80% of your profit. And so if you know that, I mean, in reality, 20% of your products, maybe even 10% of your products or less, are going to create 80 to 90+% of your income. It really becomes a game of, well, how do I just keep those best products in stock? Because I know this has been my biggest problem for years, and I know any decent-sized seller runs into this issue. It's like, dude, if I could just stay in stock on my top 15 SKUs, I wouldn't even need to buy anything else. I could literally make all my money from 15 products. The only reason we have to have a large catalog is because at any given point in time, 1 or 5 or 7 of those 15 SKUs are out of stock. Now, a lot of times we can't fix that, right? Because it's the manufacturer hasn't produced any, or the lead time's too long, or Amazon lost it in transit or whatever. But like 80 to 90% of the time that can be fixed by just being proactive and managing inventory effectively. And I'll say it again, guys, if you can just keep your top 10 products in stock, you won't even really need to buy that much more. It just comes down to keeping your best products in stock. And then always expanding what your best products look like, right? You might have 10 products today that make up 90% of your revenue. Well, 6 months from now, that number should be 15 or 20, but also that revenue number in terms of dollar amount should be higher, right? So it's like increasing that portfolio, keeping it high quality.
Yeah, and going back to like kind of the original theme of, you know, what's working, what's not working. So like on the 80-20 rule and what's working is the 80% is still necessary because that's how you grow the 20%. Right. So the 80% is going to feed into the 20%. But you're also going to have some of that 20%. Again, all products have a limited life cycle, some just shorter, some longer. So some of that 20% might be out of stock, or it might no longer be profitable or no longer viable. So you need to be constantly, you can't get to the point where you're like, all right, I got my 10 SKUs.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
Because
just
they're always
sit back.
turning.
You have
Now
like
it's passive.
you have to always be, you can't be stagnant. You have to always be growing. You have to always be pivoting. You have to be seeing the changes that Amazon's making. You got to be able to pivot, or else you'll just waste away and die.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the landscape's always changing too.
Yep.
Like, we've been selling for a decent amount of time now. How often do we see a little fee that's implemented or change without, like, you just have to be able to adapt. And that's why the brand direct stuff's so great, because as long as you're on board with your brand, it doesn't really matter what Amazon's doing. Like, you're still going to be profitable. I don't care if there's a 50-cent increase. Like, if your business is based on 50 cents, you're going to make it or break it, like, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, you're not in the right place to begin with.
And if you're brand direct exclusive, then you just raise your prices 50 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. That is one of the beauties of, especially if you're fully exclusive, right? Not just semi-exclusive, is one, having that line of communication with the brand of saying, hey guys, Amazon just raised fees by X amount, right? We're going to test out a slightly higher price point over the next 2 weeks. We're going to raise the price by $2. Make sure that doesn't impact demand. If so, great, we're going to just keep it there, and then that's just going to kind of eat that fee that Amazon charged them. Great, okay, no problem, right? And so it's just having that line of communication with the brand helps make those decisions so much easier. And another thing, so speaking of, again, adding value to brands that you mentioned earlier, I meant to touch on it, I forgot to. So it revolves around giving brands insight into what's going on Amazon. Because even brands that have an exclusive seller or an agency running their business or a group of sellers, a lot of times there's no reporting back to the brand, right? The brand knows what they're selling to their Amazon sellers, so like they can see like the number of units that are being sold at wholesale. But when it comes to like actual analytics on the Amazon platform itself, like which of our products are selling best, which ones are converting best, which ones are doing XYZ, there's no insight into that unless you as the seller are giving that to them. And one thing that I know you guys do that's I think a great idea is building out that, like analytics dashboard in like Looker Studio, I think you use?
Yeah, we used Looker for a while. I think we're using Windsor now. But basically, it's so easy. So, like, step one, like, if you're going to look for a brand, this is for viewers, target brands by finding Smart Scout. Yep. And on Smart Scout, they'll give you a report. It'll show you, like, a report on the brand. So I don't just send them that. We kind of will detail it around that. I'll send them a report on that just to get started, and then monthly reports from there. And it doesn't have to be like a full setup, just export it from Seller Central, like show them the details behind the scenes. And there's one part of Seller Central called like market basket analysis. And it shows which brands' products are bought together. And so what we'll see is, okay, this product and this product are selling well. Why don't we launch a bundle and put two together? It's going to push the customer to buy more. So that's one of the biggest value adds I would say we've added, is just saying, you guys have stuff that's selling well. Let's try launching a 2-pack. Let's try launching a bundle. Let's get some other SKUs selling. And people love it because when Amazon sellers contact brands, they want to buy only what is
already
demand.
selling.
You know, so a brand, we talked about it earlier. A brand has 2 hot sellers and 15 products in their catalog. The listings are horrible. It doesn't mean it's a bad product. It's just getting no love at all.
Right.
So if you can say, hey, you know, yes, I want to buy those, but I want to buy your whole product line. I want to get everything rolling. That's a way for them to say, okay, this guy's a little bit different already.
Right.
You know?
And so that setup where you have like that analytics dashboard, am I understanding that correctly, where like at any given point in time, a brand can log into whatever studio or portal you've created for them, and they can see, okay, over the last 7 days or 30 days or however long I want to look, Jonah has sold X amount of units of this product, right? This is how this specific product is performing. This is how the whole brand is performing. Like they can see all those insights.
Yeah, so I mean, you can do it in Looker Studio too. Very simple. That was our first dashboard, and it pulled sales, units sold, PPC sales, PPC spent, new to brand metrics, all your top selling products. And for them, like I said, it's just insight that they didn't have. So they go to our website, there's a login button. Each brand has their own login credentials, and it just pulls from Looker Studio to Amazon Seller Central.
That's beautiful.
So it's pretty simple.
Do we still have the SOP for that inside the resources vault for the mastermind group?
If we don't, I'll put it in there.
I think so for the listeners, we have it's called our resources vault. It's like 30, or I think it's actually, no, it's like 60, 65 pieces of content, but anything from scripts, templates, SOPs, and
getting a brand registered.
Yeah,
brand
like
registry.
what was it? A couple weeks ago, somebody hit us up and we're like, hey, we've got to get this brand enrolled in brand registry. Can you walk me through that process? It's like, well, hey, we'll do you one better, right? Pop into the resources vault. It's like the third row is a like Google Doc, step by step, literally print this out and send it to the brand, and they can just go through the process. Oh, easy, right? So that's one of the resources that we have in there. But I think that is just, that just, it's such a high perceived value to a brand, because it probably took your team, what, a day to maybe set up that infrastructure. And now the brand on their end, they're like, wow, I can see at any given time of day, I can log in at midnight if I want and see my exact sales numbers. And I can guarantee you their previous Amazon seller wasn't doing that. And I can also guarantee you that any other Amazon sellers that are contacting that brand trying to take your place are not pitching that. They're pitching the generic, oh, we'll optimize your listings and run PPC. It's like, well, great, we've got a guy that does that, and he tells us exactly what he's doing, and he can quantify it. Can you do that? No? All right, then don't call us again. Right?
Yeah.
Like pretty simple way to kind of defend your position there.
Right. And in 2024, like a lot of brands do have their Amazon guy or multiple guys. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean you can't also be one or take over a brand, because people do it at such a low level. Like you might have gotten the exclusive 5 years ago.
Right.
They still buy from you, but it's like they communicate once every 6 months. Like people want to be informed. So as long as you're informing them, that is value.
Makes me think of my first exclusive that I got. So it was a lawn and garden brand. They had a bunch of SKUs, and we got an exclusive on their top, like, I think 3 or 4 products at first, and eventually their top 10. And in hindsight, it would have been so easy for somebody just to steal that exclusive from me, because I was doing exactly what you said. It's like, you know, we were doing what we said. We helped them set up their listings. We were running PPC. We were doing all the things, but like we weren't communicating with them in any way. Like for all they knew, we weren't doing anything. But like we were doing a lot. We just weren't telling them about it. So
that's why I hate the word passive too with it.
Yeah,
like even
far
if you
from
you can lock down a brand direct deal exclusive, like it's still not passive. 'Cause
Right.
if you're not
Somebody's gotta
fulfilling,
manage it.
like
Right.
if you're not fulfilling, or your team, just make sure they're informed and getting the information, because it's going to be that much harder for them to cut you.
Right. And that's why I like our model of, well, hey, we'll buy from you, we'll manage the listings, we'll sell through our storefront, and we just basically pay you your wholesale price, right? It's a lot stickier, in my opinion, than some of the guys that do take more of the brand management route, where it's like, hey, Mr. Brand, you guys have an Amazon seller storefront. You guys continue to sell through your account, and we'll just manage your account, and we'll charge, 10% of net sales or something like that, which is a pretty common arrangement. And it gets very easy after you've had that arrangement with a brand, 6, 12, 18 months into that relationship, for that brand to look at their P&L and say, damn, we're paying that agency $20K a month. It's our account. Well, we can just do that. We can just take it over and do it ourselves. So we'll just kick them out. And because it's all on their seller account, they think it's as easy as just taking it back in-house and taking over from there. We know it's not, but in the brand's mind, it's just stickier when they're selling through us.
Yeah, and so many brands have been burned by agencies because of that. And not to, rag on agencies, and I'm sure, there's a spectrum, some are good, some are bad, but it's like they take that monthly fee, and then the brand doesn't really understand Amazon, so it's hard for the agency to really communicate the value there.
Right.
And I was talking to one brand, and he was like, "Yeah, this agency, they helped get us set up some of our listings, and then we're continuing to pay them however many thousands of dollars a month." He's like, it made no sense. Exactly. He's like, I didn't even know what they were doing.
Yeah.
So he just cut them off. But if we can kind of partner all right, we're buying your inventory plus adding the agency services, then it's like, all right, that makes a lot more sense for a brand.
Well, and just going back to aligning incentives, right? Like in the typical brand management context where you're just managing their account, well, if you're getting a cut of net sales, unless that brand goes to zero overnight, like you're still getting paid, right? You could be grossly underperforming and still collecting a paycheck there. Whereas with our model, when you're buying inventory and you're holding inventory and you're running ads, well, I guess technically, yeah, we could underperform and still make money, but we're sitting on inventory and we're paying for ads and we're incurring all the costs on our end. So like we're incentivized to not let things go to crap, right? So definitely two different models, but both very feasible.
Very similar too. They're super similar. The big difference is like brands take their cut, partners have skin in the game. So like when I'm talking to somebody, it's like, we are just as much in this as you. Like I'm buying the inventory. Now I have all this. I want to sell through it, you know? Agencies, it's like you take your cut and then you look for the next guy. You need your next client. And then that bottom client ends up just getting no love.
Right.
And that bottom client for a lot of agencies could be like our home run winner, you know?
Yep.
So targeting those guys who they still need help, you know, maybe the listing still looks horrible, but they have their Amazon guy. It's like, well, what is he doing? You know, why is he not fixing this up? Why have you not launched this product yet? Or what along those lines. So just, you might hear, sorry, we have our guy, or sorry, no more Amazon. Those are always the best suppliers.
Totally.
And so we get questions all the time. Yeah, you guys suck.
It's like, how do you like convince them of that without just saying that? And like a lot of times they'll say like, yeah, our guy sucks. Like we need
So
somebody
how
else.
I convince them is that audit report, like the Smart Scout. It's like, okay, well, I'll say, this is how I'm going to optimize it. This is what it is now. This is what it's going to look like. This is your competitor's storefront. This is you guys without a storefront or whatever it is. But I think just pointing it out right there up front to them is like,
I've sent
okay.
so many Loom videos to brands.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
After-
It works.
Yeah, be like, all right, because again, it's like you can send like a generalized report, and I do use the Smart Scout reports a lot too. I know you're getting more granular than that, but every brand is unique. So I try and pinpoint what is the 1 or 2 main issues that they're facing, and then just go over that in like a 5 to 8 minute Loom video, and then send that to whoever my contact point is. And then that, at the very least, it's like, hey, like I want to work with you. I think we can help you. But at the very least, this is a free 8-minute consultation call.
Yeah, true.
On
Very
what
true.
you guys need to do to improve your Amazon presence.
That's always how I position it. When I send them a Loom video, or even when I ask a brand owner or a contact at a brand to take a call, I say, listen, right? Like, it's your business, it's your brand. I'm sure you want to improve, right? Most business owners want to win. So if we jump on a 15-minute call and I can educate you on what I'm seeing from an Amazon seller perspective, worst case, you walk away with some insights that you didn't know before. Best case, it maybe inspires you to make some change and kind of help get things in line on Amazon, right? Really, you don't lose either way. So let's, can we chat for 15 minutes? Something like that, to where it's just worst case, you learn. Best case, you make a really good change. And that has worked, right? 10, 20% of the time, they'll shoot back and say, yep, let's chat. Right? So this has been a really good conversation, guys. For the listeners here, you heard us mention the Wholesale Network throughout this call, right? And the Wholesale Network is our community of Amazon wholesale sellers, where you're going to get direct one-on-one access to the 3 of us here, along with the content, the coaching, and the community that you need to scale your Amazon business to 7 figures and beyond. So guys, if you're listening to this and you want to apply to join us inside the Wholesale Network, you can head over to wholesalenetwork.io. Fill out the form there. It'll allow you to book a call, and we will see if you're a good fit. So guys, before we jump, Kaj, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, on social media platforms, just my name, Cajua Robinson, Cajua Robinson, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn.
Awesome. Jonah?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter.
I refuse to call it that.
At Jonah Hodges _. Nah, it's always Twitter.
Yeah, it'll always be Twitter.